right. Welcome everyone to our Sun Token AMA, a project that I am actually very familiar with and can relate to. Sun Token is an investment token, kind of acts like a VC fund in a way. They have some similar, transparency to private equity, I would say, with the 80-20 split that goes back to the investors. But we have Chris on the call, the founder and owner of the project. So want to introduce you, Chris. To get us started off, really, I want to learn, more about you, a little bit about your background, where you came from, right? And then how, Sun was really incepted from that.
Yeah, thanks, great. Thank you for the nice introduction, and hi to all my angel friends. So yeah, my name is Chris Duffy. I'm the founder of the Sun Token, and my background in crypto is only just over probably about a year now. But my introduction to crypto is very similar to a number of the people probably listening to this. So you kind of come in, you kind of don't quite know where to go, you don't know what to invest in. Research takes a long time. It's fraught with pitfalls, and yada yada yada. And so I, like a lot of newbies, you kind of fall into traps. You buy the wrong thing. You don't quite know what the tools are, the techniques, and you probably haven't joined many groups yet that can provide you with that kind of human element of support. And so, kind of made mistakes. The kind of success I did have were kind of often luck based rather than much else. And so after about 6 months, my luck changed around when I found some wonderful groups, just like the DeFi Angels, who through you realize the power of networking and kind of the friends you make kind of show you a lot of the tools and techniques, like I say, and kind of show you the ropes. And so that kind of got me thinking around other people who fall from some of the unfortunate bad actors in this space. And so the Sun Token was incepted from the idea that you need to spend an awful lot of time to trying to research and do your due diligence on the investments that you think you may want to make. And some investments are kind of tricky as well if you're kind of going deeper into some of the newer blockchains and some of the more complex types of investments that you kind of hear people getting into. So my journey was kind of, I think probably very typical. Most people come into the space. Sun is an investment fund. I've got a lot of experience now in crypto, thanks to some of the people I've met and some of the experiences I've had. But I'm not an investment specialist. We've got a kind of team of people who are, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. But that's pretty much my background. This is my first token, but I'm very fortunate to have a lot of resources around me and a great team.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to that point, I think it's critical for folks coming into space to be realizing to do that due diligence, especially in, micro caps and DeFi, right? Like it's very, very, but I want to talk more about your project. It's a very, in-depth project. Again, it relates a lot to me just, coming from traditional finance. So at a very high level, can you walk us through what Sun Token is and how it functions?
Yeah, sure. And I'm looking forward to all the questions as well at the end, because I've done a few of these speeches now. So in my head, my business model is really, really clear. But I think sometimes it kind of, I can't see the glazed look on people's faces. So I'll try and be as kind of concise as I can. So the way we've structured Sun we've tried to be very kind of simplistic with the branding, with the descriptive words, because when you start getting into crypto investing, you can make things as complex as you like. And there are a lot of mature investors out there that do understand it all, but we've tried to kind of start from a relatively simple base point. And as we move forward, we're going to be holding education sessions and kind of taking our community with us so we can kind of expand all together. So Sun is an investment token, and the way it works is we have our native token Sun, which has a 10% buy and a 10% sell tax. So it's a 20% round trip. And every time you buy the Sun token, the smart contract on the Ethereum network just is a very simple contract. This isn't a tech project. That smart contract takes that 10% tax and splits it into two directions. So 5% of the tax goes into an investment fund, which is an Ethereum-based protected multi-sig wallet. And the other 5% goes to the corporation that owns Sun, which is there for company development, marketing, salaries, and website development, and all those other good things that we have to spend money on. And so the key part of it then is that investment fund, and what do we do with it? So that 5% is constantly every day topping up the value and the size of the Ethereum investment fund. We only launched 2 days ago, and that we started off with an investment wallet of $50,000. And so as of today, we're pleased to announce we did make our first trade, and we're going to be making trades every day herein. That wallet will increase every day from those 5% buys and sells. What we do with the with that investment is we trade DeFi tokens. As time goes on, we're going to be also wrapping our Ethereum, moving into new blockchains, doing cross-chain development. We're expanding into Polygon and BSC and moving into new audiences to attract them into Sun. But for the first couple of weeks, just while things settle, we're going to be kind of trading in straightforward DeFi tokens. We're not out to crash charts. We're very respectful, although we will have a kind of small element of lower cap kind of casino type plays, because whilst we've got some mature investors, we've also got some people looking for kind of quick returns, and so we'll be kind of calling those out, taking community votes where needed. So the profit that we make from the eventual sells, once it gets to careful points of exit in the tokens, will be distributed back to the community by, as you said, Taylor, by 80-20 split. So 80% goes back to the holders of the Sun token, and for a limited period, 20% goes back to the advisor who recommended the investment, and we'll come to that bit in a moment. So 80% goes back to the holders of the Sun token, and it goes back by a community vote. It's a community token, so the community decide how that Ethereum comes back. In the initial stage of the project, we're going to kind of try to engineer it so it's buyback and burns, because we want to make sure that the graph to start with is stable, put some liquidity injection in. But then over time, it's really going to be down to the community how that returns. It can be ETH airdrops, it can be Matic. I mean, it really is down to the community to decide how that happens. And one of the key things as well is they can always choose to put that money back into the fund to help it grow further. So that's kind of one part of the business. That's the kind of token side. The second part of the business is I kind of alluded earlier on to these advisors that make the recommendations on what we invest in. And so that's the second part. We've pulled together an arm's length team. It's not contractual. It's not, you don't have to hold tokens, but anyone can apply to become an advisor for Sun. We've got a max team of 50, currently sitting around about 15. And once you've gone through an interview and you've kind of filled in your form and you've kind of gone through the due diligence of becoming an advisor, then if you succeed, then you get access to a Google Doc form. It's pretty simple, and you're able to have access to that form, which enables you to make official recommendations for investments into the Sun core team. We make a decision in the core team of whether we feel we've got enough information and enough due diligence has been done on those projects to make an investment, and that's the engine room that then gives us the ability to make reduced risk trades, and that's kind of then what kind of we spend that money from the investment wallet with those recommendations. So that's the kind of two parts to it. A very simple smart contract, a lot of manual work around the processes and procedures that flow all the way through from an advisor making the recommendation down to the core team. And there's lots of steps and bits and pieces in between, which maybe we'll come on to later on during a bit more detail, but that's the kind of top and bottom bit.
Got it. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, typically the way it works, folks invest into the token, that's going to be split up into another contract, a wallet, then dispersed into investments decided by your board and your core members. So, moving forward, let's talk a little bit, about some of the partnerships that you've already created. I'm a big believer, in early stage startups and really any business, right? At that inception stage, making those partnerships is prudent for the longevity of success. So obviously it's no secret. We're partnered with Sun Token, and we're very proud of that. And we feel, with having some of the folks on the team there and being kind of incepted from DeFi Angels, we're always going to support that and really do our best to send over that deal flow that we incur as well. So explain to me a little more about some of the other partnerships. I see Safe Solidity, who I'm very familiar with, Pacifico, and any more that you can announce now?
Well, so sorry, excuse me. So we've been holding for the last kind of 2 weeks or so, which obviously was pre our launch, we haven't kind of got any other sort of DeFi Angels and Pisipo are our two major partners, because you guys are, we've kind of got that history together of me knowing that you're a very safe and secure home for investments, and the due diligence that you do and the way you operate has been, we've always been very impressed with that. And so that's why, it's an obvious choice for us and for Sun to kind of help make that successful. We do want to move into NFTs at one point, because this probably is the year of the metaverse and the NFT. And so Pisipo will provide the support that we need for that, although we're not kind of actively doing that work at the moment. Safe Solidity did our audit, and for those that don't know Safe Solidity, I really suggest you check them out. They have a contract scanner, but there's so much more, and they are responsible for saving many millions of pounds or dollars for pounds for me. I'm based in the UK, for people to keep them safe in the crypto space. So I'm really proud to have those three groups working alongside me. So the other partners, which I'm calling more collaborators than partners, are other DeFi projects who we know, and you can come onto our Telegram group, and we'll try and get them on the website soon as well, just to kind of showcase them. But these are other crypto projects that are doing a really good job in the space, and being run by really good, honest people. And rather than paying for lots of marketing, I've got a very organic approach to growth. And so we're growing Sun through that kind of collaboration of merging communities together, holding AMAs internally between each other, which is not financial, but just to kind of help look for synergies. And we've had huge successes. I don't think we've had an AMA yet where we haven't found some kind of synergy between our groups, where once that develops and matures, that there's going to be a lot of ways that we can all help each other out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, it's the good thing about, token and company like yourself is you're always going to be attractive to new projects, right? And I think the bottleneck for a lot of the projects, at least that come through our pipeline and that we see, is they're so centric to themselves, right? So having something that can be, invested so many different ways, I feel like, in so many different projects, having that attraction from other projects is really going to drive, I think, the success of Sun moving forward in the future, right? That's an element that's uncharted still in DeFi, I would say. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing, that growth and how the communities interact. And also, it's kind of to that point, you see kind of the toxic environments around, some things in crypto and DeFi. So bridging some of those gaps, right? Kind of being, bridging that. So the tension's not always there if there's another group and different tokens and kind of the wars that people see. So I think it's really cool business module. But what I think is even better is the way that it's set up. And when I say when it's set up is, again, going back to the fund, the way that you've created, I would say, a project that can appeal to smart capital, folks that come from traditional markets, right? That really understand, say, private equity, VC, or even just stocks or private investing, right? They don't understand typically DeFi, but what they do understand is a fund. So having, that laid out in those terms, I think is very lucrative and advantageous in ways. And it can really help scale. But I want to talk a little more about the token and the tokenomics itself. There was a pre-sale, a private sale, and a public sale. Can you just enlighten, future investors that are looking at the project a little bit about how the funds were raised and then seeded into this project?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we did have a private sale and we had a public pre-sale. The combined, we raised $130,000, which contributed to our liquidity raise, which was 100,000. So we started with a 160,000 market cap off that 100,000 liquidity, and then the rest went into the remaining funds went into the investment wallet to give that its kind of kickstart. So the private sale was run through a DeFi Angels round, which was very successful. Both rounds were filled in 3 days, and then we also had some other private wallets that we used to just kind of bring in a couple of kind of key influencers. We didn't really spend any more on money on marketing, but we kind of had about 5 wallets that we kind of kept aside for that, just to kind of give our marketing some work. And we also gave some private wallets to key individuals who supported us on the kind of month or probably about a month on the lead up to launch. So people that really kind of came through, even in the community, who provided an exceptional level of support and are still with us today, supporting us. And so, you know, for those of you that have kind of been on Deck Tools and seen our graph, I think we did a really good job of protecting our holders by you know, choosing groups and kind of managing that process in a way which, you know, rewarded people who wanted to support us and saw the vision. And it's hard, you know, when you've got a startup or entrepreneurial company that's starting, it's, you know, seeing the vision can be hard, because that road from A to B where you want to go is often very wiggly as you're trying to find your way. And so yeah, we were really grateful for everyone that kind of came forward. And as you were saying, Taylor, you know, just like us holding the projects and these kind of collaborative events between other projects, everyone's really open when you start surrounding yourself by honest projects in crypto. And I'm really grateful that I am surrounded by that, because there's an awful lot of non-honest people in crypto. You really start to see the huge amount of good work that's happening in crypto, and hopefully long will that continue to the point where, you know, in the coming years, crypto is a really safe space for us to operate honest companies. So the public sale kind of happened, and you know, that was down to our community, and we had a great response to that. And yeah, and here we are. We had a slight delay on launch, where we had a failed launch due to code, so we went live the next day, and since then everyone's been really supportive.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you're going to see the success. I mean, you already have so far. I mean, you look at the chart, you know, having, you know, pre-sales, especially the condition of the markets right now, right? Like you look at any past pre-sales, and most of the charts do not look like your chart, right? They've typically bottomed out with folks, and, you know, and that's kind of the market sentiment lately. But what your project shows, strong holders, people that believe in that longer term vision. And that's what DeFi needs, right? And that's why I'm really happy that we can highlight a project like Sun Token, you know, versus a lot of the Inu coins and different kind of P2E games that are your most typical ones that come across. But, you know, furthermore, deeper kind of into the company, I want to talk more around the investment thesis, right? The investment strategy that goes into how Sun Token operates. So right now you have a select group of members that make these decisions. Right now, is it strictly the members that are making the decision, or is there a component maybe that allows for the community to have a voice and vote on some of these projects that are coming in? And I would also like to learn more about the people that are behind the scenes, kind of hands-on, if you can release names, or the folks that are working on it and making some of these decisions. But more or less, you know, investment thesis and the other things I named, I'm very curious about.
Yeah, sure. So the way it was originally structured was I kind of pulled that kind of team together myself to start with, based on people that are in kind of close within my network, because I wanted to make sure that the people that were in there were people that, you know, I kind of was sort of known and trusted, and I knew they were doxed, or, you know, whatever the right kind of phrase is. So from that point onward of launch, any new person that comes in has to be, I mentioned there's like an application form, because there's some terms and conditions in there of conduct as well, as much as anything else, but which I'll come on to. But so from this point onward, anyone needs to be interviewed. So if you come to me and say, well, look, hey, I've got a huge amount of knowledge of metaverse, and here's my bio, and this is my skill set, and this is why I feel I'd be a good advisor for your group, then we'll say, okay, let's have a look at your application form. Let's get you an interview. And with the people we currently have, we've pretty much covered majority of the types of skill sets that we're going to need moving forward, although we need to strengthen up in some areas. So if we have someone come in and say, I'm very knowledgeable about metaverse plays on Phantom or whatever it is, then we'll take a current member of our team who has a kind of similar skill set, and we'll use them to also bring them into the interview to kind of help that process come along. And then at which such time we feel that person's ready, then yeah, they'll come into the team and they'll be given access to the recommendation form, and they'll also be given access to the private Telegram group, It's not a GIF and kind of fun group. It's a business group. You're not required to really contribute into that group unless you're asked to. And there are two key things that we ask of the members of our group. The first one is that they attend a weekly meeting, which we hold. We haven't had our first one yet. The first one will be next week. And the idea of that is that we talk about the current state of the crypto market and what impact that may have on our strategy in terms of our risk profile and kind of trades that we want to make moving forward, kind of broad brush kind of strategy. And that will kind of then just kind of create a bit of a two-way flow and kind of help us understand the kind of things we're looking for. But, you know, it's disconnected. Ultimately, any kind of alpha, if you like, and information that they have that would be helpful and they think could be useful for Sun, then they can recommend that. But the recommendation form, which is separate to the application form for the advisor, that has this very comprehensive form that kind of starts us off with that dialogue. So the community side, yes, we absolutely want to do community voting. At the moment, it's a little bit immature to start that because we're still building our community. But it's written in the white paper that we will have community voting. But at the moment, until we've got that level of maturity and until certain members of the community really kind of come through and shine and kind of show that, because we do have a dedicated community investment room. We don't want investment links and project links put in our main chat because it will dilute it. But we do have a separate TG again, specifically for the community to kind of talk about kind of just projects and kind of create communication and just give the community place to kind of talk. And that will develop. And over time, we will build voting into it. I think the first place we'll probably introduce voting will be on the kind of higher market cap stuff. So at one point, we're probably going to say we'd like to buy Matic, for example, and how much we invest. You know, that's the kind of thing that we can start voting on, and kind of bring it up slowly. And eventually, I think there'll be a level of maturity where, yeah, the community are absolutely playing a part in the actual voting of what projects we or certain types of projects that we want to go for.
Absolutely. And, you know, that'll also create a lot of just education, you know, for folks joining those rooms, making those suggestions and kind of hearing and bouncing ideas off of each other. One of the most powerful things and companies don't realize is communities and like-minded individuals at that. Whenever you can bring like-minded individuals, especially investors, together, the typical outcome is generally going to be making a better investment decision. And that's just proven through statistics of groups and, you know, various ways that you can invest in some, you know, capacities in the traditional world. But being in DeFi, again, you know, having kind of this format, I would say, for a novice investor can be very attractive. And simply put, I think the reason why it could be attractive is it really, I would say, cuts out a lot of the work that folks would have to put in to find DeFi projects, because I don't hear you really talking about, you know, investing into some of more what called like blue chips, right? But, you know, playing in the DeFi realm, some of these small caps, there is a certain level of commitment that you have to put in to really make those keen investment decisions to be successful. So navigating that as a novice investor is almost impossible on day one, day two, you know, week one, month one, whatever. It takes a while to absorb that kind of knowledge. So kind of, you know, cutting out the legwork, for lack of better terms, I think makes it attractive to novice investors. So my question following that is, how do you bring in your seasoned, you know, DeFi investors, or is that even your demographic? And if not, who is your target demographic?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I kind of mentioned at the beginning, we're kind of trying to keep it simple, but, you know, you mentioned about more traditional finance vehicles, and when I look at the kind of demographic we've got, you know, we're here and we build outwards, like most companies. And so to start with, we're kind of one degree of separation away from like crypto projects that are like me, but and my reward system at the moment, which is this 80-20 split, is kind of very much geared up to that audience. Now, one of the downsides, I suppose, of our model is because for every profit we make, 100% of it's kind of given away. 80% goes to holders, 20% goes to a combination of the advisor and for the payment or commission, if you like, for the recommendation. And so the fund is only growing by 5% of the buys and sells. So as part of the roadmap is we're going to be introducing a kind of deposit scheme in stablecoin. So you can, at the moment we're Ethereum based, but on the roadmap we'll be introducing USDC. So if you have, if you're a more traditional finance or investor and you have, I don't know, let's say 10,000 USDC that you want to deposit into an investment fund, we will do the investing. And as I mentioned, our investment starts simple, but we'll be moving more to, you know, a stable coin element. When I say stable coin, I don't mean stable coins, but the more stable kind of high market cap blue chip type investments. And you know, so the portfolio will be kind of split. And so you can deposit your funds in stable coin, so you know that price that isn't going to fluctuate. We'll invest that for you, and you'll be receiving a return on your investment of your stable coin. And so the fund will move from well, it will still be what it is with the 80-20% split. But if you would want to use it as kind of a holding deposit, which you can withdraw your money at any time, then you're able to. And that's us moving slightly into a more traditional model, which also meets a kind of a tangent that we've set our company up currently offshore. So we created a proper company to run the project, which kind of protects us and our holders from the you know, regulation. Regulation's a wonderful thing, but me being in the UK, it's very, very difficult to regulate with the FCA. They're just not in a position at the moment with the maturity to do it. So as the project kind of moves forward, we will look for European regulation, and so that model we will move to will adapt nicely to us moving into a proper regulated space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's keen to be ready for that when it happens, right? Because we all know regulations are in the pipeline, like they're coming down. I know being in the US here, just today, an announcement came out that, you know, President Biden's going to come out and address cryptocurrency coming soon. So, you know,
you've got to think ahead. Yeah, particularly when we're vested as well, because our private sailors are vested for 3 months and our public sailors are vested for 2 months. It's not a huge amount of time, but you know, this is crypto months, which is what 1 year per month roughly is the joke, isn't it? So you got to be ready for this stuff coming down the line.
Absolutely. And being ahead of it also, and kind of the structure that you already have is going to be good as it becomes more formalized, right? I think just kind of having it already buttoned up. Let's, you know, back up a little bit. You know, one of my questions, and you've been on these calls more than most people probably on here and been around me a long time. I always like to ask, you know, how do you make your money, man? You know, that's, you know, we're all in it for, you know, to make DeFi a better place, and we're all, you know, have to be compensated at some point. So explain to myself and the investors listening, how does Sun, you know, as a company make its money?
Sure. So it's pretty simple. The 10% tax in, 10% tax out, 5% goes to the investment wallet. The other 5% comes to the team. And out of that team wallet, which is 5% of all buys and sells, then we make sure that we kind of pay ourselves a salary from that. The 80-20 split of profit, where the 80% goes to the holders and the 20% goes to the advisor, well, that 20% drops down to 10% because it's kind of like almost like an introductory kind of first month thing while we're trying to find our feet for the token. Then that drops down to 10%, and then after that 10% of the investments come back into the team too. So long term the team will start getting propped up by the investments it's making, as well as receiving 5% of the buys and sells. And that's pretty much it. That's the model. Although I wish I'd changed it to $1 for every word I say in AMAs, because I'm having so many at the moment. I'd be better off charging by word than I would actually be running a crypto project. There's so many meetings.
Yeah, I want to relate, my friend. I think you know, these AMAs, so you know, but they're good and stuff like this.
No, I say it in jest. This is you guys are a fun crowd. So yeah, this is one I've been looking forward to.
Right on, man. Well, Chris, I've already asked so many questions, and I typically get carried away asking questions. And I know you have a giveaway tonight. Sounds like that. I heard, at least. I'll let you tell the crowd. But if anybody wants to open up now, we have our core team and our deal flow committee on the call. I'd like to leave the floor open for questions.
And before you do, I will state that the person that asked the best question will receive $300 in Sun tokens after this call. So choose your questions carefully.
Hi, Chris.
Well, I have a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Cool. So I wanted to know, how is the 80% distributed? I'm assuming it's by wallet size, sort of like a standard reflection. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. So there is a distribution element to it, and it's by community vote. So I don't really get to choose, sadly. But if you know, if I pick an exciting one, which we're not going to be ready for straight away, but at one point people are going to start asking for ETH airdrops, because everyone kind of wants ETH at the end of the day, don't they? So what we're doing is we want to kind of create some kind of fairness and equality amongst the group. So we're actually it's interesting bit of maths involved in that we're taking square root of everybody's holding, because if we don't, we've obviously, because we've had a private sale and we've got, I think there's one gentleman that's already bought kind of 5 ETH of Sun himself. He's a big advocate for it. And so we're going to have people all own very large wallets. And of course, as the price of Sun increases dramatically, then those people will effectively end up taking a lion's share of the 80%, which is kind of partly perhaps what your question's aiming for. So poor old Tom that comes in after we've moved across to BSC with his 500 quid, how's he going to see anything? So what we're going to build as a system is, and I'm actually updating the white paper at the moment that comes out at the weekend, is we take the square root of everybody's holding. What that does is it flattens the distribution profile. So yes, the person that's got the biggest bag will get the biggest reward, but by flattening the profile of reward, the people at the bottom actually get a higher percentage in relation to the largest holders. So it kind of creates a nice equality, because then that's going to help with the longevity of the token, because you're not going to come in feeling that there's no point. It actually creates a really cool kind of profitability for everyone. But really buyback, no, that's okay. But the other, so you get to know me. If you ask a question, I'll just keep going forever. Sorry, but just to finish off, the buyback and burns, adding to liquidity, recycling it back into the investment fund, there'll be a bunch of other options on there as well that they can choose. And we're also going to be introducing a charity too, so hopefully there'll be a charity element as well.
Actually, I really appreciate that answer. I've seen a lot of projects that, you know, they have sort of a distribution piece that's separate than their sort of reflections, and it doesn't seem as thought out, and this definitely does, so that is really nice to hear. In relation to that same question, is there a minimum token amount to qualify for that 80% profit, or does anyone who holds your token receive that amount?
No, and everyone that holds.
Lastly, I'll just ask the second part of that. Are they going to be automatic, or do people have to connect in somewhere on the website to retrieve them?
I don't know, is the honest answer. We want to airdrop them. We're happy to airdrop. There might come a point where if we get too many holders, perhaps that isn't possible. And also, despite the kind of us trying to help with the distribution curve, there might be a certain chunk of holders that just don't own enough that makes the gas fees, because we're on Ethereum, worthwhile. There are solutions to that, because we're going cross-chain. So we can provide any kind of distribution of any type of coin. So once we get a bit more mature, that's going to look really cool when we start kind of putting that into a graphic and a flyer, because it's going to create some really interesting types of reward distribution. So yeah, we can airdrop by that point. But I think, as I said at the beginning, I think to start with, we're going to be looking to stabilize the project, and, you know, Taylor said, sort of taking a step back and remembering that we're young, and that we want to make sure that we're keeping the graph right, and that we're keeping the price stable. But yeah, but you know, you guys can have it however you like, but there'll come a reality to it where perhaps airdrops, it might need to be claimed by people if it doesn't really make kind of economic sense to do the airdrops. But we'll have to see as we go along.
Awesome, thank you.
No, thanks for the question.
Hi, Chris. You talked about the charity. Did you have already in mind what kind of charity you are targeting?
No, I'm open to suggestions. And on that, in Sun, we have a suggestion form that if you want to come into our Sun Telegram chat, I'll get my little plug in, then we're more than happy to receive suggestions on which charity everyone would like. There are quite some really good charities out there, and we actually got an AMA for one next week. So that's the kind of us starting to think about that process. So it'll be interesting to see how the AMA goes with that community next week. But no, always happy to have charity suggestions if anyone has any.
I will create one just for the people who lost their phones inside crypto. So that will be a lot of people.
That's a big charity. That will be nice to connect with.
Chris, hi, it's David. How are you?
Hey, David. Nice to talk to you.
You too, my friend. Congratulations on the launch, by the way.
Thanks.
I know that you have a mechanism, which I'm sure will obviously mature over time, for navigating your investment portfolio through choppy, volatile markets, or even, well, I won't say the B word, but could you explain that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so we're actually building, because it may be coming. So we're looking at the moment about we obviously got our Ethereum sat in a Genos, a multi-sig wallet, and so we're actually just talked today in a meeting about converting some of that into a stable coin. We think the price of ETH by the end of the year will be up a lot higher, but there might be a bit of a turbulent time. So it's not for me to opine on that, because it's not necessarily my area of expertise, but certainly some of the guys in our team have definitely been saying it's worth starting to, in the coming days, weeks, think about converting some into a stable coin. And we've got a couple of, in our advisory team, we've got a couple of actual traders, kind of day traders who coming up with a kind of a back of the pocket strategy. So if we do start heading into the B word, then we've got some strategy of kind of making money through that downfall as well.
Right. Good. And
but don't ask me what that is, because those guys are thinking it up.
Fair enough. I'll just apply for the advisory committee then. So as the portfolio builds out, I assume the strategy, well, maybe I'm projecting, but the strategy would be that the portfolio will also help smooth out the bumps, right? We hope everything doesn't stay correlated at 0.99, so that's even more possible. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very textbook answer, but the whole, one of the principles of this is, if you take hundreds of people's investments and you pool them and you spread them over a broad spectrum of trades, then you're inherently reducing risk, and it's a standard kind of investment model, isn't it? So obviously the success of us will be dependent upon many things, but one of them is the choice of our investments. But you make a really good point, because it's natural in these environments to be positive, and we all want to be positive people, but at the end of the day, we're in a very volatile space, and it could go down as much as it could go up. So I think you've got a really good question, and I don't think that we've thought it through as much as we want to. I know that, as I mentioned, we had a meet today where we're talking about what we can do. Transferring ETH to a stable coin is a really obvious one, but we do need to make sure, and probably quickly, that we've got a proper plan, one which I could kind of present.
And you would want to be able to appeal to people whose risk tolerance may vary, right? As Taylor mentioned earlier, people new to the space might not have the same risk tolerance as experienced investors. So.
Yeah, and I think this is one that I want to put to community vote quite quickly, because it's really important for me. I mean, lots of things are important for me, but I'm going to kind of pick out two at the moment, which is community transparency is a big one for me. Everything, we got a ledger that you can connect to our website, and you can have a look at every trade we make. And it also tells you the kind of profits that's going to go back to the advisor, the profits that are still yet to be paid to the holders. Don't laugh at it; it's a bit basic, but it does the job. But come the end of March, we're having a website fully redeveloped with proper DApp, and we'll kind of have a better kind of system for managing that. But it's perfectly fine at the moment; it just looks a bit simple. But
awesome.
But yeah, that's the plan.
My thumb is up. You can't see it because my camera's not on, but thank you for your time. Thanks. It's nice to see your face, bud. Take care.
Yeah, it's good to speak to you too.
Hey, Chris, it's Ryan.
All right, go ahead,
Hey.
Ryan. You go first.
Well, thank you, Rex. So, congratulations on your launch. It's been awesome to watch where it started back in November and to where you're at right now. But kind of bringing us more to today, you had an announcement that you had your first investment in AVAX, and I see that you're expecting to get your original investment of zero point 0.5 Ethereum returned by today or tomorrow. Could you explain to me how that yield is so quick, and how that works?
Yeah, I can do it at a high level. So we're very fortunate that we didn't expect this, but as part of our searching for an advisory team, we kind of stumbled across a couple of really experienced farmers, and a guy who's actually now been appointed as part of the team to kind of be the strategist for that. And so we've kind of got a fully fledged farming team. So it wasn't originally in the white paper that we were going to do farming. But yeah, we had the kind of opportunity to kind of get this team up and running, and we thought we'd make our first investment a bit of a fun one. So yeah, so this was a wrapped Ethereum trade in the Phantom blockchain, and we actually did a live. It's about 30 minutes long, so you're going to need a warm cup of coffee. But we did a kind of tutorial at the beginning, or it wasn't me, sorry, but the farmer that did a tutorial at the beginning to explain the full process about how to wrap your Ethereum and what the Phantom blockchain is all about, and kind of then the video then shows him making the trade, and it's effectively I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, I thought there was a question. So yeah, so it's essentially a very high interest yielding pool. So I think the interest rate on this particular pool was, top of my head, it was something like 300% per day or 400% per day. The very kind of to some extent, the way farming works is you kind of have to be kind of staring at the locks. They're extremely volatile. So the strategist has a plan of exactly what kind of pools they're going to go into, and then it's the farmer's job to kind of execute that and make sure that we're managing our money and pulling it out and moving them into new pools. It's the kind of money movement between them. So someone could probably explain that a lot better than me, but that's my understanding of it at the moment, and it was really fun for me to actually be educated slightly in that process too today. And so the reason why the money's going to be, or the original investment is going to be returned, is because we want to leave the profit. And this may not be we haven't gone for the big money shot on this, but we just wanted to kind of do a showcase for the first investment. So the profits that we make, which maybe only kind of a few £100, we'll leave in that. We'll keep farming it and just to see where it goes as a bit of an experiment. But as the investment fund grows and as we feel more confident, then that's definitely a team that is one to watch out for, and that will be a big part of the group.
Gotcha. So as a follow-up for that, how are your expert yield farmers incentivized to, currently and into the future, grow that fund?
Yeah, really good question. Competing with David there, probably, I think, for the prize of the best questions yet. It's TBC. I mean, we're on day 2 of the project, and I recognise that farmers it's a labour-intensive activity. It's not just go on Uniswap and make a trade and then kind of come back once you've got once your project's some point down the line when your project's delivered and you can slowly and carefully and respectfully take profits out. It's not like that, and so the profit that our farmers are going to get over time some of the money will be, we're hoping to do a kind of 50-50 split between the team wallet and the investment wallet. So the community, not all the community money will be used, we'll be matching it. That's my intention. Whether we can deliver it or not, we're going to have to see. But I'm kind of happy to kind of come out and say that hopefully the team wallet can help do it, because the reward system of 80-20, it won't work for the farming team, because unless we bring the farmer in as a salaried person, then the reward, because the amount of effort up front and during the process is higher. So the reward scheme does need to work differently, hence why we might bolster up and match the money that goes in through the team wallet. But that model is still to be determined. But again, but like my current team, who have been working for like 2 months, almost kind of volunteering to some extent because they believe in the project. These guys are doing exactly the same thing while we develop, and I'm really grateful for that. And so we're going to have to find a fair way to incentivize and reward that. But at the moment, we're just kind of testing it out and seeing how it operates, and testing out our processes and procedures around putting things on the ledger and the whole end-to-end structure. So I don't know at the moment, but we'll find a fair way to do it.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate that. And that volunteering, I think they have a name for that, like sweat equity. But with that, I will let Rex go. Thanks.
Yeah, volunteering is the wrong word. If they heard me say they're volunteering, they might have a word to say about
me. Sorry, Chris.
No, you're.
So, do you guys? You've mentioned voting a few times. Are you sort of modeling this on the DAO model, or how exactly do you envision that working?
Yeah, well, no, we haven't really envisaged it on the DAO model. We are going to have, because at the moment, like I've alluded to a few things that are kind of basic, but will kind of come wrapped around our new website kind of towards the end of March. We will be moving to a model that's a little bit more kind of voting power through ownership of something. That may be the case, but we haven't decided. At the moment, the voting is really a very kind of straightforward in Telegram procedure, and the kind of in the white paper there's a whole page dedicated to types of voting that they're going to be able to take. Some of it is, as I've mentioned, it's going to be on how profits are returned to holders. There's going to be actual vetting on voting rights, on trading recommendations, but that's a little way down the line. We've got voting around the investment split. So this is kind of like broad brush investment. Kind of, do we want 40% of our portfolio to be in kind of established DeFi tokens, and 10% in a kind of casino fashion, and 20% in kind of the more stable kind of high market cap. So we want to kind of start bringing this level of voting in as well. And there's also going to be voting on educational sessions, because I mentioned that. So we've actually got a gentleman that's joined our team as well, and he already owns a group around education on crypto, and particularly around about how to keep people safe. So we'll kind of have a bit of a fun voting on what kind of things do people want to learn. Yeah, that's all I can think off the top of my head. But I think it's going to be high level to start with. But as we move into kind of the end of March, I do want to put some proper, structured voting, which will slightly more model the DAO sense.
Right. I mean, the first question that comes to mind when you're talking about Telegram voting is, how do you control for bots or people who bought one token so they could have a vote? And the typical DAO model is a weighted vote. It can be an algorithmically weighted vote so that the whales can't overwhelm the small guys, but it's still a weighted vote based on how many governance tokens you hold.
Yeah, and that's you're right, and that's why we're not doing, to start with, kind of investment recommendation voting, because you know where that would go. So we're doing kind of light-hearted voting at the moment, where I don't think bots would be too interested in our broad split on investment type. But give it 6 weeks, and we'll have a fully fledged voting process up and running as part of our as a DApp on our website. But exactly how we're going to do it is still to be determined.
Fair. I think I know the answer to this already, but you don't actually have like a detailed breakdown of your treasury investment strategy. So much in VC, so much in stables, so much in liquidity pool farming, so much in alt chains, et cetera, et cetera.
No, we do not. No, not at the moment.
That's fair. I got really curious about one thing. Somebody asked it early on. I think it might have been Taylor. And you were talking about investment funds or portfolios. So I could, for instance, take some money and give it to you to invest in stables or blue chips.
Yeah.
Versus something maybe more risk-based. do you plan to manage that by additional on-chain contracts, or do you plan to manage that in some more centralized way?
Very good question. So on-chain versus centralized, can you expand on that? What do you mean?
Right. So if you're talking about an on-chain yield strategy, this is going to be something that you manage more through smart contracts versus something that you manage through a frequently updated strategy on a, described on a website, but managed by people rather than managed by the chain.
Oh, yeah.
And do those yield strategies get linked to a smart contract?
No,
or
it's the
or
latter.
They just okay. It's the latter.
Yeah, it's the latter on both. Yeah.
Okay. And my
sorry.
Go ahead.
Go on.
No, go ahead.
No, it's just the model will. I mean, we're building into the white paper at the moment, but so it's going to go out for review. But at the moment, the strategy is, because I should probably kind of bear in mind the point that at the moment where I described how the advisory team was full of kind of individuals, the model will move. The model will move from being individuals who are providing recommendation to kind of companies in inverted commas making recommendations, and that could be real world companies. And we talked about the DeFi Angels with their better deal flow, but it will also include lots of tokens. So when I mentioned earlier on how I've had about 6 or 7 AMAs with other DeFi tokens, that wasn't just from a marketing perspective as to kind of bring our numbers up as we grow. It was to find these kind of synergies. And I'll give you an example of how it relates to your question, because we've had an AMA with one particular company as an example, which is a launch pad for play to earn games. Now, all the kind of people that come to them and say, "Wow, we want to be on your launch pad," well, they'll have to go through due diligence, because that's their business to make sure that the games they put on their platform have gone through a due diligence process. Now, that's where Sun comes in, because our synergy between that, as one example, is games that come to them may need funding. We're an investment fund. They can push them our way to see if we can help them grow and expand with an honest kind of fund helping them. This other company I mentioned are going to then give them the springboard and the launch pad to kind of launch their token. And so their role as a company will be on our advisory team, and they will kind of help us kind of bring recommendations in that have already been pre-vetted. So in terms of like lines of defense, to make sure that by the time we make an investment recommendation, it's as solid and as de-risked as we can make it. And that's a much better strategy than having individuals, much better. And so that's the model that we're going to move to. And that's why we're holding so many AMAs, to connect with lots of different projects. And so so the investment strategy is going to be predicated by the kind of human element, not the smart contract element, because we're going to be making investment decisions via those kind of collaborations. So it's going to be very much a human side and the portfolio managed in that sense.
Fair. And that sort of leads into another question, which is, if you're essentially got teams of fund managers, how would you differentiate yourselves from something like an SEC regulated mutual fund, like legally? Like, how's that any different?
Yeah, well, we don't have different funds per se. We're not really split. The only reason why we're splitting our funds up, so we've got our central ETH store, which is this multi-sig wallet, and so that will so all ETH we own will only ever be held in that safe. And whenever we want to trade anything, the ETH will be moved out of there and put into one of our other wallets that you can actually trade with. It's a bit of a problem we've got at the moment, security-wise, that we're trying to work out how we can make. When we're talking to a couple of companies at the moment, because we've got our main ETH store. So we've got our ETH store. We want to trade something, we've got to take money out of that and put it into a tradable wallet. And then when sales happen and we make profit, that ETH goes straight back again. So when you talk about the funds, it's effectively just a kind of a series of kind of 3 or 4 or 5 wallets that are broken up, and the private keys and the ownership of those is held just by me and 1 or 2 members of the core team. So it's the model at the moment isn't really comparable to it. It's kind of, you know, it's managed in that sense. You know, I think as time goes on, it'll be broken down into kind of more structured, you know, metaverse, play to earn, you know, various different categories. But it's a lot more simplistic than the real world fund at the moment, because we've just started. So it's a much more simplistic model. As we grow and the investments become way larger and a lot more diverse, and as we turn to real world investing as well, you know, we'll always have the crypto arm, but you know, we'll move to more traditional kind of investment fund and hedge fund models. But yeah, it's a bit too hard to compare us right now.
Right. The question was more along the regulatory aspect of it.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I got you. So, well, yeah. So we're a security. We fall smack bang in that definition, if that's what you're referring to. And so that's why we've had to set a company offshore to make sure that we can operate within a legal and regulatory approved environment. And you know, once we've got the funds to do so, we'll be applying for regulatory approval, you know, kind of in Europe and Malta or Portugal, or one of the areas where it's you know, connections to Europe are a bit better.
How does that affect European and U.S. investors who are dealing with the SEC or the appropriate UK regulatory body? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm taking it one step at a time at the moment, but you know, they'll iron out. At the end of the day, we need to expand, and I don't want to expand out in the Caribbean. We'll have to come into Europe, and how we've got a lawyer that's working with us. I say not full time, but we've got a legal company that's giving us counsel as we move forward. So I'll have to kind of take my team and take my legal counsel as we move forward.
So you do have some legal counselors you can reach out to.
Yeah. We've had a lawyer working with us, you know, for the last month now, and he's on our kind of contract books to invoice us on a certain number of hours per month to give us legal advice to make sure that as the regulations change, that we're aware of it. And of course, as we need their services, we'll ask for it as and when we need to expand. And I certainly hope that that's a topic of conversation one day, sooner than later. But for now, they're on our books as a kind of consultancy basis when we need to use them.
That's fair. You don't have to have answers for all the questions. It's just curious. I'm curious.
I'd love the topic of conversation to be about, we're about to apply for regulatory approval. I'm looking forward to the day when we have an AMA and I'm talking about that.
More curious. You don't need to have an answer. I'm more curious. This is also part of the thought process. Just one nerd question before I hand it over to anyone else who wants to ask questions. You talked, if I recall correctly, about a weighted distribution, so that small holders wouldn't get basically nothing. Mm-hmm. Did you have an algorithm in mind for that weighted distribution?
I think an algorithm's overkilling it. I'm a very simple man, and so we looked at a couple of different ways of doing it, and we thought one of the kind of simplest ones, so we don't confuse ourselves and confuse anyone else, is to take the square root of the number, and it's worth a Google. It's pretty simple, but if you take everybody's individual holding and you square root it naturally just reweights everything in a proportionate way, so that the larger number is decreased more than proportionally the smaller number. So the curve you get of distribution is then weighted in the favor of the smaller holders. But obviously, if you hold a larger holding, you're naturally going to still get more. The other options we thought about were capping it, but I didn't like the idea of capping things. So yeah, I kind of feel that we had to do something. It didn't, otherwise there was a risk of project failure, to be quite honest, because you know, you get to a point where people don't see the point in getting the 80% benefit. I say that it depends how it comes back. Obviously, if you're buying back and you're burning, it doesn't matter. It's not relevant. But certainly when it comes down to distribution.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a basic algorithm, but it works.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's
It's
actually my dev's idea. I was trying to come up with something more fancy, and to be honest, hours of work, and he just turned around and went, "Oh, why don't you just square root it?" And I was like, "Brilliant."
yeah, it's a good answer. It's a least squares inverse variance weighting, right? Where the bigger the holder, the smaller relatively the square root.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that works out. I'm curious to see if your larger holders feel like they aren't quite getting enough out of the game with that kind of a weighting. But it's certainly worth a shot.
It's worth a shot, and it's the way I want to do it. I think there's too much. I've been part of too many crypto projects where we're kind of feeding the whales and feeding the rich, which is no bad thing. If you're wealthy, you've got a right to earn more. It's just the nature of it. But it goes on my kind of moral compass and principles of having a community token and an open and honest token. And so I just kind of felt that was kind of part of the tenets of what we were trying to deliver, I suppose. And yeah, it may upset one or two people, but it's going to make a hell of a lot of other people happier, and it'll help us grow the token, I think.
It sort of orients your community to a larger number of smaller holders and the smaller number of larger holders.
Yeah, and particularly as we go across, because we've got like a detailed 3-week timeline of things we're going to try and achieve. We already kind of jumped the gun with starting with a yield farming phantom blockchain investment, but there wasn't really supposed to be that way. It was just a bit of a showcase at the beginning. But within 2 weeks, we want to be across at BSC, and it's going to be really important for that audience, I think, because the BSC kind of demographic is often one where it's kind of smaller investments, but much larger numbers of people. So we're going to try and make sure that we market that as we start going across to that environment.
Thank you, Chris.
Wow.
I have a couple of questions, but before I actually ask them, I just wanted to let Rob and the professor know, and anyone on the voice chat that wants to ask a question, if you could just type it in the chat, in the main chat, and then Taylor or someone else will actually ask the question for you in the AMA. Basically, the people that are unmuted on the call are the deal flow committee, as well as the core. They're just the only ones that are actually able to speak on the voice chat, all doxed members. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that. So yeah, you can ask your questions in the main chat, and then we'll make sure that those questions are asked for you, so that you're also entered into the contest. And then as far as my question, like I said, I think I have a couple, but first I wanted to say, Chris, I appreciate just how communicative you are and how transparent you are with the community. It makes it really easy for me to participate in Sun. So I wanted to make sure that, you knew that. And I also respect and appreciate that you did get that investment done today. You did everything, really quickly. I know that wasn't, supposed to happen, as we said. So I also appreciate that. And I wanted to know, as far as investments, would you consider investing in any pre-sales or private sales? I know they could be risky, but like if you maybe it was something where you knew where it was vetted, would you consider that?
Yes, we would, and we appreciate you very much, 2K. We're very lucky to know you and have you in the community. So yeah, we would. We actually have something on our roadmap called Sun Flares, which is me trying to be clever about projects that have flair and pizzazz that will kind of support from seed phase. And part of the reason why I'm redropping a white paper version 3 the weekend is because some of these things that I kind of had in a kind of a phase 2, phase 3 are all kind of, a lot of them are being brought forward. And that's kind of one of them, because we've actually already been approached by 3 projects that are looking for seed funding. And it is tricky because pre-sales are a strange and different beast, which which we haven't accepted any yet. Partly because, if I give an example of today, took us 3 hours to review all the forms that we'd received and make decisions based on, the kind of holders that each project has, what we believe its potential profitability is, do we know the team, all those kind of questions that you have to go through to try and make sure we're kind of de-risking it as much as we can, based on the information we've been given. And I'll just touch as well that one of the things we haven't talked about is that if we don't feel that we have enough information, then the other purpose of the group, one of the things that they sign up to, these advisors, is that they're all part of this private Telegram group. And other than the weekly meeting that they have to attend, if we call for support because we need a kind of a consensus across all the advisors, then we have the right to kind of ask them for support in making a decision. We probably won't do that too many times, but that's just one of the kind of, in the terms of reference of their signing up, that we can kind of call on that level of support. But today we didn't do that. Today we kind of made some decisions based on the information we had, and one of them was a pre-sale, but we've turned it down just because we couldn't satisfy ourselves on the risk. So I think we've got a little bit more work to do, Kay, on deciding to get into that space. And again, it kind of depends on where it gets rooted from as well. If it came rooted from one of our partners, or it came rooted from one of the kind of companies, for want of a better phrase, that we're having AMAs with, that they've already gone through a level of due diligence, then yeah, that's a much more appealing prospect. But where it comes in from a slightly more independent source, it kind of holds a slightly more different category of risk.
Sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Chris, we have a couple questions in chat. I'm actually trying to get back to the main chat now.
Thanks,
yeah, I can go ahead and ask.
All right, go ahead.
The first to get through these is from Easy. Says, hello, Chris. Congrats on the success of your relaunch.
Thank you.
Here's my question. From my little experience with trading in crypto, I'm aware that no strategy, quote unquote, irrespective of how robust it is, will yield profits every time. Profits and losses are part of the game. I'd like to ask, what are the checks and measures in place to ensure the investment fund isn't blown? And what's the protocol in extreme market volatility situations?
Okay, well, first of all, you need to change your name from Easy, because there's nothing easy about those questions. So volatility, I believe we've covered off. I think we kind of addressed that, in the sense I was only able to answer 50% of that question. We've got some immediate things we can take should the market really crash quickly. So we've got some fast measures. But in terms of profiting from a downturn, then we're working kind of more detailed strategy, which Nick in my team is kind of his forte, and I know it's on his mind and he's thinking about it, but I can't answer exactly how we're going to do it. But I'm happy to take the name of the gentleman that asked and kind of come back once we've got the details. And I've forgotten the first part. Can you repeat the first part of the question?
Sorry. Wants to know, from his little trading experience, in terms of trading crypto, he's aware that no strategy will yield profits every time. Profits and losses are part of the game.
Okay, right. So it's about us protecting the investment wallet. So the amount of money that we're prepared, I say money, the amount of Ethereum we're prepared to put in an investment, and this is going to be part of the new white paper also, is going to be kind of tiered. And so I keep kind of saying the same thing because it's going to be important to me, but the routing in that investments kind of come from is going to be weighted based on its risk profile. So we eventually, if I kind of get to a really kind of a specific example of I don't want to name drop other projects or tokens, but there's one that we've been talking to who you have to be certified and go through it's a qualitative and a quantitative kind of certification process, and your project cannot be listed with them unless you've gone through a full vetting. Now, we want to be able to kind of push projects that way that come to us where we feel that we're not prepared to invest unless they've gone through a certification, because we're unsure, and that's just one option they've got, of course. And if it kind of comes back routed through that, then we can give it a kind of tier 4, highest tier kind of category of, yep, we'd be prepared to drop down so many ETH as a result. And that kind of goes down depending on our risk profile. And so that's a kind of preventative measure for the fund kind of being drained, because it's all about managing your risk. Should we do a bad job, and yeah, the 5% that we're gaining from taxation isn't topping it up as fast as we are draining it through making poor decisions. And I'd like to think that that wouldn't be the case, and couldn't happen. Let's be real. Maybe we'll make some poor choices. Then what we'll be doing is we'll be holding meetings. As I said, we've got full terms of reference for this in the white paper, on what the meeting structure is. The inputs, the outputs, the quorum, what the kind of key meeting agenda is, with the full advisory team. And they're obliged and required to attend that if we hold one. And we'll be talking about the fact that our investments aren't working, and we need to change things. And then we'll adapt our strategy, and we'll reassess the people if we need to in the team, and the kind of ways of working will have to be reviewed like they would in any company, I suppose. So hopefully we won't address that, but our white paper is a wall of words. Someone told me it's kind of long, but there's a lot of content in there, and we've been quite strict with our processes and procedures purely based on the fact that it's kind of a manual program, and we do want to kind of, I know it's a vision and it's a long way off, but when you're kind of heading towards a regulatory status, then we're trying to start as we mean to continue, and we're kind of finding our feet a little bit because we're new. But those processes and procedures are going to guide us, and so I've taken a lot of learning actually from a lot of these questions. And in my head, I'm hearing a lot of places which we need to bolster up and put some even more controls in. But yeah, that's probably the best I can answer at the moment.
Thank you, Chris, and hopefully easy. That answers your question. Moving forward, we do have a few more from the community. The next one is from DC Town. His question is, after vesting is over, are there plans to either continue a staking option or some form of incentive to maybe continued holding and locking up our tokens? Does that make sense?
Yes, there will be. Yeah, we've got a set of treasury tokens, and which is poorly phrased, forgive me, but we've got in the tokenomics there's a large, I think it's 49% off the top of my head, of tokens which are vested on a 1-month rolling basis. In the original white paper, it was a 24-month lockup. They were tokens we didn't need, we didn't want. They were there as a kind of byproduct of the rest of the tokenomics designed to do a particular kind of thing, left these tokens spare. And we actually had a member of the community that put a suggestion form in and said, well, hey, don't lock them up. The company can use these for XYZ reasons, and we've had some really good options that we can use for those tokens moving forward. And one of them, yes, was staking. So again, website towards the end of March, we'll have a DApp, and there's a possibility that we'll be using those tokens as a staking tool. So some of our holders can take their coins out of circulation, which is also going to be beneficial for the token as a whole. And then the tokens that they take out of circulation, that they stake, they'll be able to earn more tokens. But we're also potentially going to be adding an NFT element to that as well.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. And thanks, DC Town, for that awesome question.
Yeah,
the next question is from Science of Crypto. So the question is, Sun is basically investment DAO, and investment DAOs are on the rise. In your opinion, do you think that they'll replace crypto venture capital? And finally, we've got lots of investment funds out there. Who are your competitors, and what are you doing differently or better compared to your competitors?
Yeah, so I'm going to go backwards again. So from a competitor standpoint, there's an awful lot of projects that are doing projects that are similar to this. So the way I describe the best things about this one, with the 80% rewards by community vote is definitely one of its key features. I do think the transparency we've got is also another one of the key features we've got. We've talked about the fair distribution, which is I think quite unique. And so I'd like to think those three things are kind of sufficient. The way we're tackling marketing, whilst not being necessarily a differentiator, I think it's really a unique way of expanding our product through human beings and collaborating together. And time will tell whether that's a good idea or not. But certainly, I think that because we're an investment fund, we've got 5 different Telegram groups that we use, and the idea of them is to really, at the moment the community needs some work, but the idea of some of these Telegram groups is that we're going to get people talking about investments. We want people to be educated. We're going to be holding education sessions. We're going to be bringing people on our journey. So as we move into new blockchains, we want to tell people what these things are as we start doing play to earn games, and we're, as I say, kind of converting our currency into other types of blockchain currency, explaining what all that is. And so we've got all these kind of lofty visions about kind of really creating a really cool culture out of this, and bringing in other projects to demo. So yeah, I think they're our kind of main features. Hopefully people think that's enough, and we can succeed. And sorry, Taylor, tell me again the first part of that question, because I talked too much and I forget what the first bit was.
Totally fine. I'm actually scrolling through. You have a lot of questions, my friend.
Yeah, sorry. Hit me with another one.
Yeah. We can move on, right? We'll move forward. We have our next question from Rob Mc5. Love the name, by the way, Rob. Just to throw that in there real quick. He says, Rob. Hi. My question is about the 30% burn. Chris, you've patiently explained it once or twice, but I'd like to make sure I'm understanding completely what the amount will be. The 48% or so that exists on ETH side is all that can ever exist in ETH now, right? So is it 30% of the ETH that will burn, or the total 100 billion supply? Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. So no, it's the token supply. So we've got out of 100% of our total 100 billion, we'll be burning 30% of that in month 5.
Very good. And the next question is from Star. He asks, can Chris please explain the supply and how much is locked away, and how the market cap looks higher in DEX tools, and what the actual market cap is? This is also Star, a question I was going to ask before we got bombarded with all these great questions. So Chris.
Yeah. One of the joys of just launching a token is ironing out all of the tech stuff. So the reason why our market cap looks insanely high is because for a few reasons. The first one is because we had we don't know how it happened. We had a bunch of people, about 12 people, who received the wrong token amounts on our airdrops to the community from a private pre-sale. So we pretty much got to the bottom of all the spreadsheets on that, and those people have been kind of corrected and sorted out. That meant we had to wait a little while for one of the wallets to lock, and that should be locked now, I believe. I think it's already done. Now we now have to wait until we've got CMC listing. Once we've got CMC listing, then DEX tools will update with the correct figure. So we've got a bit of a process to go through to get that up to date. So that's why DEX tools is showing the wrong figure. We are not at that figure. I think I haven't looked at the graph for a bit today, but I think we're probably estimating around the 400 to 460 figure of our actual market cap. That's 400,000 to 460,000. Might be out.
Very good. Thank you. And out of respect, I wanted to circle back to that previous question where we had 2 from Science of Crypto. Yeah. First one, you answered about the competition, and I just kind of want to add on before we move actually into the first portion of the question. VC funds and a lot of these groups that will exist and that we're seeing being incepted and starting to come out. The crypto industry is so big, not one VC fund or venture capitalist or, one private equity fund is going to be able to absorb the entire industry. So, just to kind of, let people know there's plenty of room at this table for multiple, VC style companies to be, coming to that seat. But furthermore, to circle back to science of crypto, the first portion of that question is, again, Sun is basically an investment DAO, and investment DAOs are on the rise. In your opinion, do you think that they'll replace crypto venture capital?
Okay, got you. Thank you. Do I think it will replace venture capital? No, I don't think so. I think they'll find a balance. I think they'll end up being a natural equilibrium where they offer just slightly different services. I think both have power, but I think probably they have somewhat different uses in the future. I don't know where Sun's going to end up from a venture capital, because we've already talked about the kind of baby version of that, providing kind of seed funding for crypto. But I'm really interested to see where it goes. And I'm really interested to see what Sun's role is in that moving forward. And hey, I mean, I've been approached as well recently, and some of the AMAs we're having next week around kind of springboard, kind of launch pads and platforms, and people who are kind of trying to create that similar kind of business. And you're right, Taylor, there's so much demand for funding, and there's so many people now offering funding. It's a huge space, and it's exciting because it's moving quicker than you can read up about it. So I think there'll be space for both.
I concur, and I couldn't agree more. It reminds me of where I came from, out of the early stages of cannabis, and kind of seeing that develop. And those were some of the questions at the beginning, being the pioneers of that industry. But the key to take away from what Chris is saying, about these things and kind of the vision of it is all about timing and positioning of markets, especially before any kind of federal adoption, especially that. So for instance, like big corporations, big pharma, tobacco, big everything getting involved, right? Like a lot of the banks you're starting to see come in. We've already started to experience that first wave in crypto, which is great. That's going to start maturing it. But I don't want to get on my spill about that. But yeah,
it's relevant.
Yeah, no. You answered the questions dead on. I'll let some folks have some time to write some more questions in the chat. So I'll pause for a minute. I don't have any questions for you, Chris, right now, but maybe somebody unmuted here on the call or a person from our team does. So I'll leave the floor open for a moment.
I have two really quick ones. I know I was the first one to ask some questions, but I have two additional questions that should be easy for you. The first one is, how many of the people on the team are full-time working on this project? And one of the things I didn't hear you talk about was your method of marketing.
Yeah, so we've got myself that's full-time, obviously. We've got Nick, who's helping me run the advisory team full-time. We've got Karani, who's also full-time. He does have a day job as well, but I don't think there's a lot of that happening at the moment. And he's managing our Arabic community, which is thriving at the moment, as well as kind of master of all trades, kind of just helping me project manage things. We've also got Massey, who's leading the FAST team. That's not full time, but that doesn't need to be at the moment. Plus our two farmers, who are also not full time. We've got Arch, who's been brought on recently. He's not full time either, but he's going to be helping kind of just program, project manage all the work we've got going on. We've got a new Kanban board to make sure that we're trying to manage things a lot of the time in Telegram. It's not a good project management tool, so we're kind of trying to put in a bit more discipline around the management of the team. We've obviously got kind of Kay, who's helping do some community management, doing a grand job of that, as well as I feel like I missed one. Oh, Emil, of course, our developer, and he's not full time, but we're not a tech project, so he's done a cracking job of our Solidity code. But that's the only requirement there. And then we've got Uber, who is going to be helping us in the future run our education sessions. Who is also not full time, but a lot of his work is in the crypto space full time, because he sort of lives in other. He's got his own channel around education and anti-rug type activity.
If you're looking for a good project, sorry, I was just going to say, if you're looking for a good project management software, I don't know if you've ever tried ClickUp, but that's what we use, and it works really well for our team.
I haven't heard of that one. ClickUp.
It's called ClickUp. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Feel free to, it's his Lady Crypto. Feel free to shoot me a message if you'd like, or I can reach out to you if you want a link to it.
Yeah, thanks, Lady Crypto. And you know, I'm not too good when people ask me 2 questions at once. I've got a goldfish
Everyone
memory.
wishes
So
about marketing.
Marketing, yeah, sorry. So it's gonna be a running theme now. Everyone's gonna be asking me 3 questions at once just to really trip me up. So yeah, marketing. Well, if honestly, we started doing kind of the traditional marketing. It's kind of a crypto thing. I didn't like it, but it kind of seems what people do using callers and I hate using the shill word, but you know, shill posts and sites, and all that happened was we got kind of spammed with people DMing me, and it didn't really have the results we wanted. So we kind of stopped, and we've maybe paid slight price of that at the beginning because we just gone purely organic. We stopped spending money. We paid for like 1 or 2 YouTubers, which was a big expense. Which, to be honest, it was not brilliant results, and so. Reinforced the reason to go organic, and we've been organic since. Holding AMAs, and as I mentioned, kind of reaching out, and I want to find more. Time has been a bit difficult for me the last 3 days, but I'm really keen to hear about any project out there that feels that they'd like to kind of just have a chat and talk about their communities, and you know, we'll explore synergies as we go through. And that's how I want to do it, really. I'm keen to talk to as many people as want to talk to me, and we'll kind of we'll find some you know, joint community members as a result of that collaboration and that sharing. That takes us to a point, Lady Crypto, but there will come a point in the future, and it'll hit us faster than probably I'd like to think, where we need to actually go into proper strategic marketing. That we're not prepared for. We started having a couple of conversations a couple of weeks ago that I need to pick back up with proper strategic marketing companies. But we obviously, as we're starting to build up our team wallet, as it were, to kind of pay for those kind of more expensive type strategic kind of contracts with proper companies, as we want to maybe move into the Chinese market and, you know, expand our reach in a more serious manner. And that's something which is going to be coming in the weeks ahead, because, you know, I kind of explained I've got that 3-week detailed roadmap which we're following, which was our kind of post-launch, what's happening every day to keep our holders kind of aware of what the immediate post-launch stuff is, which includes kind of AMAs and some level of marketing. But post kind of a month in, we need to be thinking a bit more strategically, and my mind is as the dust settles at launch is moving into that place, but we haven't got a marketing partner arranged yet.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Chris, it's me again. We have a question from the community. The name is RM Docs Agent. The question is, and I think it might have been partially answered, but just to elaborate a little more, I think could be helpful. The question is, how are you evaluating advisors for project investments? Do they need to have, you know, a certain amount of time in the market?
No, they don't. But that's only kind of one attribute. No is the answer. They don't need to have a certain amount of time, but they do need to. If they don't have time, then they need to have something else that's really bloody impressive, because experience is just as strong as kind of qualification. So it's an individual merit, is probably the easiest way to answer it. They have to have an interview as well. It's not just based on a kind of a bio of bullet points. So it is very much on an individual basis. But as I say, over time, I want to move it away from an individual and move it to more kind of corporate and company based advisory.
Got it. Very good. We also have another question that just came in from the community. The name is Northside. Says, hi, Chris. Given that everything works great and goes to plan, are there any plans to diversify income and spread to other sectors besides cryptocurrency? And where do you see this in the next 5 years? Cheers.
That was 2 questions again. Yes, we have to. I don't know what it is. I know that, you know, crypto is a big place, and I've sort of said you start inwards and you spread out, and when you start spreading out, you start automatically kind of hitting completely new sectors of the market. And so I think as we grow and our reach grows, we're inevitably going to start hitting sectors of the market that will kind of broach outside crypto as well. It's going to start, you start looking at, at one point down the line, centralized exchanges, which kind of dips your toe into the centralized space, and then things kind of rapidly expand from there. So it's not a very specific answer for you, but yeah, we won't sit still in DeFi space. We will expand, and I've kind of got links to existing kind of real world UK hedge fund companies. So there's a kind of a long-term vision. I've got to be realistic. We just launched, but there is a long-term vision of kind of, once we regulate, part of the reason for regulating is because at that point, then you can start, expanding from a proper corporate side. And so where do I see myself in 5 years? It's pretty much there where I just said.
Yeah, I'm surprised you can answer where do you see yourself in 5 years in crypto, because 5 years in crypto is probably like 180 years. You know what I mean? So,
I can tell you I'll look a lot older than 5 years.
I definitely hear you. No, I appreciate you answering that question, and thank you, Northside, for that question. I love the vision long term, and that we
confidence. You guys have got some confidence in this group.
Yeah. And we actually have another question from Arcadia Services. The question reads: will you follow hype/meta when looking for projects to invest on? Example, for the past several weeks, NFTs have been giving some crazy returns. There's an investment fund that's 100% into NFTs, and they're doing well.
Yeah. So NFTs were actually on my roadmap later down the line. And I sort of said that earlier on when I was describing Visipo as one of my partners that we haven't engaged with yet. They're kind of providing some levels of support to the company, but not from a kind of, we haven't kind of dipped our toe in NFTs. NFTs, if I'm honest, is a space that I don't know if it's because I'm slightly older than a lot of the generation of crypto, but I have yet to fully understand the power of NFTs. I see the value in it from a pure monetary perspective, but the utilization of NFTs, moving from artwork into real world utility, that's where I'm going to be interested. Rightly or wrongly, the hype of kind of buying apes pictures is something that I don't quite yet get, and people are trying to convert me and talk to me about it, and there are projects out there that kind of are kind of on my radar, but I think I'm going to be more interested in utility than I am the hype. I mean, that said, if opportunities come my way and they're de-risked and they've kind of passed the muster of something which we feel that we're not going to get stung by, then I'll listen and I'm interested. But I'm a little bit hesitant at the moment until I feel the time's right for the company, because there's so many other things that we can do as well. But I did say that this year is the year of the NFT and the metaverse, in my opinion. So I need to move into that space, but how, I'm not sure yet.
Very good. NFTs blow my mind. So I'm places, and I look at more of it as a utility as well. So kind of hearing you say that with the utility, something, maybe a suggestion or just a thought that just comes to my mind is when I look at it, like we've met with companies, one of them's IPWE. They do a lot of IP work and, patents in the space, and they're offering that via NFTs. And then you kind of look at, other aspects of that, right? Like just for example, like, you buy a house, you could have, the documents there, and, buy a car, you could have the title for the car's NFT, and you can start seeing that maybe in the future, but definitely not close there. That's really where I find NFTs probably the most interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, and there was a company that we're actually bringing them in. He's really busy. I don't know if I can get him next week, but I really want to hear more. And I'll speak to you about it, Taylor, as well, because you guys might be interested in this. But he owns he's done a multi-million-pound corporate funding for property, and he's fractionalizing ownership of the property via crypto NFT. So it's kind of a blend between real world and NFT fractionalizational ownership. And I don't know if it's been done before or whether it's a one of a kind thing, but the concept behind it and the business model he's got behind it is mind blowing. And using NFTs in that sense, that's where I get really, really interested in it. But you wouldn't call that kind of the hype of NFTs. That's a kind of a little bit more of the kind of longer term mature investment, which I guess you could argue is what people are going to be attracted to in the Sun token. I don't think you're going to be getting thousands of people entering my token tomorrow in some kind of pump and dump fashion. But, as we've said before, the graph that we've got at the moment, whilst it needs developing as we expand, I think it's clear that we've got a confident set of holders that believe in the long-term vision of the future. And I think probably the kind of things that we'll aim for kind of tie in with that as well.
Totally agree with you. And I know that one of our committee members had a question, so I'll pause for a moment and allow folks to speak, or if you still have questions, please write them in the chat so I can ask. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, I had a question. I'm sure I saw it.
You're breaking up, Tanner.
Yeah, sorry, Tanner, we can't hear you very well, mate. It sounds like he's driving, so definitely don't ask him to write it in the chat.
Well, that's actually a good point. Yeah, we can move past that. When Tanner gets a little better service, we can come back on. But in the meantime, does anybody here possibly on the call with our team, or maybe anybody listening, if you have a question, feel free to chime in. It doesn't shock me if there are questions. We've been going for about an hour and 42 minutes, my friend. You've answered a lot of questions. This has been a really, really informative AMA, which is, that's why we want to do these. And I don't have any more questions for you personally. And I guess to kind of move into closing it out, just want to tell you that I'm proud of you. I've been,
Thanks, man.
in the space for a while, and we connected last year. We've been involved in a lot of different projects together, just being peers as investors, and, having you in our group, and, doing, the deal flow committee. You've really came a long way, I think. But also, I think you're built for this. And I am very comfortable putting my investment dollars in the hands of you, because one thing that I and our group look for is strong teams. So when we can actually, know and trust a team, and know that there's constant development and it's a real utility, that's where our investment dollars are going to tend to go, and our focus is going to tend to go. So, thank you for bringing something real to the space. Finally, we see a lot of riffraff that comes across every single day. There's a lot of stuff out there that gives DeFi a black eye, for lack of better terms. What I think Sun does is really bring out that kind of light to DeFi, the bright side of it, the real side of it that it can be, and the potential of where real markets are going. And I think your project is resembling that. And from a traditional standpoint, I think the conversion there, it may not happen today or tomorrow, but definitely down the road, as this gets more globally adopted, you will see folks wanting to invest in these types of structures, guaranteed. But thank you, Chris, for coming on. And did you want to share anything with us in closing?
Well, no, only to say that thanks for those kind words. That is very probably generous of you, but I'm not the only one in my travels in launching Sun that hasn't mentioned your group and your company and your community of being people who have kind of saved them in many occasions from a bad investment, and have found a really nice home with your group. So I'm really grateful that I've kind of come through your community. So no other questions, nothing else from me, but it has been a pleasure to talk to you all. I know I've been a bit absent during the launch of all this, but it's nice to see some familiar faces, and thanks for taking your time aside to come and listen to me ramble.
I'm going to ask.
Can I
Tanner's
ask a question?
Oh.
All right, you do it, Kay. Somebody had to do it.
Tanner's trying to get that perfect question into the competition. He's trying to get in last.
He does. He really wants to win.
Go ahead, Susie. Ask it. You ask it.
Okay. You want me to ask it? Okay. No, I gotta find it. Is exchange arbitrage part of your strategy?
This has been an interesting one to learn, the arbitrage. I thought I was going to have to spend a lot of money on a market maker until someone just said, well, let the community just adjust it for you through people that spend their days taking advantage of arbitrage. So we are not going to manage arbitrage. No, we're gonna let that happen. I mean, the way that the tokenomics have worked is that we've got only 2% in the Uniswap pool, and we've got 15% in future liquidity pools. So we can kind of create the proportions equal as we move to new blockchains. So the math should stack up, but the arbitrage will still exist, I think. So I think the intention is just to kind of let that happen, because we're happy to get the arbitrage because it creates the tax which fills the investment fund. Is the kind of honest answer to it.
Awesome.
And then lastly, how did you find the DeFi Angels? No, I'm just playing. It's a joke, but yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Case always got.
There was this wonderful lady I met.
Really? What's her name?
Can't remember.
Thanks. But no, thank you so much for answering questions and your transparency. Once again, I appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure.
This has been great. And before we close out, I want to share just with anybody listening that wants to learn more about Sun Token and maybe wants to take down a quick note. The website is thesuntoken.com. You can find their socials there, white paper, the detailed timeline, and look at the investment fund ledger as well as go to the chart to invest. So give them a check. Chris, thanks again, my friend. Congratulations. I wish you all the success in the world, and we're going to be there with you every step of the way, giving our support, my friend. So thank you for coming on tonight, and thanks for hanging out for what's close to 2 hours now. This will be a fun video to compress down. It'll take a while, so we'll get it over to you as soon as possible.
All right. Lovely talking to you all.
All right, my friend. Cheers. Have a good night. And thank you, dude.
Yeah. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.